should be omitted. The reason is, because in this kind of prayer, the delights rise immediately from the source, without being conveyed in pipes, or the understanding spends itself in considering that it does not understand what it desires. Hence, it goes up and down like one mad, and rests upon nothing. The will is so fixed upon her God, that the restlessness of the understanding greatly afflicts her. Therefore she must not heed it, for it makes her lose much of that which she enjoys. Let it alone, and let her throw herself into the arms of love, for His Majesty will teach her what she is to do on that occasion. This consists almost entirely in considering herself unworthy of so great a favour, and employing herself in giving thanks. Through speaking of the prayer of recollection, I have been prevented from mentioning the effects on signs found in souls, to whom our Lord gives this prayer. This is clearly perceived an enlargement or dilation in the soul, just the same as if water that flows from a spring into a cistern should have no passage out of it, but the cistern was made in such a way that the more the water comes in, the greater and wider does the vessel become to contain the water. And so it seems to be in this prayer, whereby God works many other wonders in the soul, and thus disposes her further still for containing all. This sweetness and interior enlargement are manifested by what remains in her afterwards, for she is not so restrained, as formerly she was, in matters relating to the service of God, but she enjoys much more liberty. Neither is she distressed through the fear of hell, for though she feels greater fear now for having offended God, yet she is free from servile fear, and has a great confidence that she shall enjoy Him. The fear she used to have of losing her health by doing penance has now ceased, and she thinks she can do all in God, as she has greater desires of using austerities than ever. The fear of afflictions, likewise, which she used to have, is now more moderate, because she has a more lively faith, for she knows that if she bears them for God's sake, His Majesty will give her grace to bear them with patience. Nay, sometimes she desires them, since she has a great desire to do something for God. And as she now understands His greatness better, she accordingly esteems herself more vile. Having, likewise, tried the delights of God, she finds those of the world but dung in comparison. She separates herself from them by little and little, and for doing this she has more command over herself. In a word, she has improved in all virtues, and will not fail to go on increasing, unless she should relapse and offend God again, for then all is lost, however highly raised the soul may have been in virtue and contemplation. We must not suppose that when God bestows this favour once or twice, the above-mentioned effects will always remain in her, unless she continue to receive the like favours, for herein all our good consists. There is one point to which I earnestly wish to draw the attention of him who finds himself in this state. It is this: to be extremely careful not to expose himself to the occasions of offending God, for the soul in this state has not strength enough, but it is like an infant beginning to suck, for should it leave the mother's breast, what can be expected but death? I have great fears lest the like should happen to him on whom God shall bestow this favour, if he should leave off prayer, unless it be on some very particular occasion, or provided he return to it quickly, for otherwise he will go on from bad to worse. I know there is great reason to fear in this case, and I know some whom I pity much, for I have seen this happen to them of which I am speaking, when they forsook him who so ardently desired to become their friend, and to prove himself such by his actions. I thus warn them beforehand to avoid the occasions, because the devil labours much more against one such soul than against many others on whom our Lord does not bestow such favours, because they may do him much more harm by drawing others after them who may do great service to the Church of God. And were there nothing else but to see how His Majesty shows a particular affection for them, this would be enough to induce him to do his utmost for their destruction, and thus they are furiously attacked by him, and if once conquered, they are more deeply ruined than others. You, my sisters, are free as far as can be seen from these dangers. May God preserve you from pride and vainglory, and permit not the devil to counterfeit these favours, which may be known by not having these effects, but all are quite the contrary. I wish to warn you of one danger, though I have alluded to it in another place. It is one into which I have observed persons fall who are given to prayer, and women especially, who, being weaker, have more need of the caution I wish to give here. It is this, that some persons being weakened with severe penances, prayers, or watchings, or having naturally a weak constitution, swoon away on receiving some of these consolations, and their nature fails them, and when they perceive some internal delight, with a certain external decay and languishing, or when a spiritual sleep, as it is called, happens, which is somewhat more than the above mentioned, they mistake the one for the other, and allow themselves to be absorbed, and, in the meantime, the more they yield, the more are they absorbed, because their nature becomes weaker, and in their idea it seems to be a rapture, but I call it a stupidity, for it is nothing else but losing our time and destroying our health. A certain person continued 8 hours together in this way without sense, or without any perception of divine things. But by being made to sleep and eat, and indiscreet penances being forbidden her, she was cured of this distemper. For there was one who knew the person well, though she had deceived her confessor and several others, and herself too, yet without any intention of deceiving. I believe that the devil used some diligence to draw some profit thence, and he began to gain a great deal thereby. We must notice that when this truly comes from God, though there may be an interior and exterior languishing, yet it is not in the soul, which feels strong emotions on seeing herself so near to God. Besides, this continues only for a very short time. It returns, however, again, and is absorbed, and if, as I said, there be not weakness in this prayer, the suspension is not so great as to enfeeble the body, or to cause any external alteration in it. Be sure, then, when you find yourselves thus affected, to acquaint the superioress, and take as much recreation as possible, and let her not give you so many hours of prayer, but very few. She should also make you sleep and eat enough, till your usual strength shall return, in case you should have lost it thereby. But if any one's constitution be so weak that this is not sufficient for her, believe me that God wishes her to be only in the active life, for there must be monasteries for all kinds of persons. Let them employ her in business, and be always careful that she never be left alone, for if she be, she will completely ruin her health. This will be a great mortification to her. Here our Lord will try her love for him, by observing how she bears his absence. After some time, he may perhaps be pleased to restore her strength, but if not, she will gain by vocal prayer, and by obedience what she would have obtained this way, and perhaps she may gain more. Some may likewise be found of such a weak mind and imagination, I have known some such, that they think they see all they fancy. This is very dangerous. But as I may hereafter say something more on this subject, I will say no more here, as I have dwelt so much on this mansion, into which I think more souls enter, and where the devil may do more harm, because the natural and supernatural are often found united. For in the following mansions our Lord does not give him such power. May he be praised forever. End of the fourth mansion, chapter 3.